Bitcoin. Is it too late to buy it, or are we still early? Okay, so while Bitcoin may have been a well-kept secret 10 years ago, maybe even 5, let's be honest, Bitcoin is everywhere today. And that leads us to the question, is Bitcoin still a great investment today, or has its time of rapid growth passed? So in this video, we're going to attempt to answer that question with the help of Michael Saylor. Hi and welcome back. My name is Tom Heavey. I hope you're doing well. I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, BlockFi, but more on them later. For now, let's get straight into our first clip.
Coins, I think you're up to about $7 billion worth. I don't know if I did the math on today's price, but out of your entire market cap of $7.4 billion. For a while, in the mid-60s, everyone was up. Everyone had made money. That's not the case anymore. Would you stack right now? Would you wait for a further pullback? How do you do it?
We're going to keep stacking forever, Joe, forever. Yeah, the issue is crypto's going mainstream. You know, we hit all-time highs last week, and now there's volatility. Inflation's gone mainstream. And so what's causing the volatility? The volatility is driven by exchange leverage, the altcoins, some security tokens, DeFi, wash trading, the novelty of crypto, and the excessive growth, right? And that doesn't surprise me. I think people have been waiting for clarity from regulators, and over the past month, we got a lot of clarity. The report on stablecoin is telling the world that they want stablecoins issued by FDIC-insured banks. The Crenshaw report is telling the world that DeFi as we know it will not continue. The spot ETF denial report is telling the world that the regulators want crypto exchanges to meet national securities exchange rule and standards. And the infrastructure bill is putting into question staking and DeFi. Now, there's one thing that's for certain, Joe. The world wants two things. The world wants a digital dollar, US dollar, and they don't want 100 billion of it. They want 10 trillion of it or 20 trillion. The Chinese want it, the Africans want it, the Asians want it. They want it from an FDIC insured bank or like. And the world wants a digital asset that's a store of value, and Bitcoin is universally accepted as that common property store of value. So those two things are clear. Everything else is murky. The market's trying to sort out what all this means.
We're getting a lot of data points, you said that earlier, about inflation too. And gold made a move, finally. It made some people are surprised it hasn't made more of a move. And I think you can go back, I don't know, can you go back a decade? Probably, and we're a little changed. Is it your view that Bitcoin has replaced or will replace or is in the process of replacing gold as the store of value for most investors?
There's a war for non-sovereign bearer instrument store of value. And it's Bitcoin versus silver and gold. And gold's 10 trillion and Bitcoin is 1 trillion. And it's pretty clear that Bitcoin is winning, gold is losing. Of all the commodities in the world, the only one that isn't suffering from inflation in the last 12 months is gold. You want to eliminate inflation, build everything with 24 karat gold, it won't go up in price. Bitcoin's definitely winning that struggle, and it's going to continue because you can move $1 billion block of digital gold at the speed of light. You can program it 60 times a second, and the maintenance cost is much lower. The custodial rates are much higher. So it's pretty clear that digital gold is going to replace gold this decade.
Okay, so there are some really interesting points here that I'm going to break down and simplify later on. But for now, I'd like to thank BlockFi for sponsoring this video. BlockFi is a fully registered, compliant US company making cryptocurrency simple for their customers. With BlockFi, you can get started with as little as $20 and place set and forget monthly purchases. That way you can dollar cost average your investments over time, the best and safest way to invest your money. With BlockFi, you also know your holdings are well protected as they prioritize the highest level of security for their 1 million plus customers and $10 billion in deposits. Now, if you already own cryptocurrency, you can take it and deposit it on BlockFi. BlockFi and earn an interest rate of up to 8.25% APY. They also offer unique services such as zero-fee trading between cryptocurrencies. Now, we've seen the explosion in recent years of platforms like Robinhood that have made trading on the stock market feeless. Well, BlockFi are doing the same in the crypto space. And finally, they even offer a cashback credit card where users can spend their cryptocurrency and earn up to 3.5% back in the form of Bitcoin. There is a link in the description and in the pinned comment. Use it, deposit some money, and you and I will both receive some Bitcoin. So with all of that said, let's jump back into it.
There are probably some troubling things in the infrastructure bill about how the tax treatment of Bitcoin, but it doesn't happen right away. Do you think between now and when it's supposed to happen that it won't happen? Or, I mean, that's an overhang on the future of Bitcoin for being more than just a store of value, for being much more utilitarian, isn't it?
You know, I'm not at all troubled with any of the regulation going on right now. The safe haven for institutions is to use Bitcoin as a store of value. Bitcoin's the only ethical, technical, and legal safe haven in the entire crypto ecosystem, right? It's more technically secure because of the ASICs and the proof of work mining. It's more politically secure because of the support for the miners by the politicians in every jurisdiction. It's more ethically secure because it is universally acknowledged as common property. So if your use case is to buy $1 billion of Bitcoin and hold it forever in lieu of gold or in lieu of property, or in lieu of a stock portfolio, that without all the risks of stocks and equities and bonds and all the headaches of precious metals, then Bitcoin meets that use case. All of the sound and fury in Washington is going to have an impact on security tokens, DeFi exchanges, crypto exchanges, all the other use cases of crypto that are not Bitcoin. And that's where we'll see all of this settle. And that's why there's volatility right now.
So if you were to try to look at the eventual adoption of Bitcoin and divide whatever that is by 21 million, what number do you think is realistic in the future? And I don't know whether people should never try to do a target and a time for when you hit the target, because you can't get both right. But what you think it's worth $1 million a coin someday, Michael?
The big idea is every currency in the world collapses into the US dollar stable coin, and the US dollar is the universal medium of exchange for the world. And people seeking a long-dated store of value asset, a synthetic asset, they start to demonetize that second investment property, and they demonetize gold, and they demonetize an equity index. So what do I expect? I expect that Bitcoin, if it doubles every year at the end of the decade, it will have flipped gold, and then it'll flip monetary indexes, a little bit of bonds, a little bit of real estate, a little bit of equity, and emerges as a $100 trillion asset class. So 100x where it is right now. And when we get there, it'll be 5 to 7% of the worldwide economy. The US dollar will probably replace 150 currencies. Maybe there'll only be 2 or 3 left. There might be the euro, the CNY, the dollar. Everything else is probably going to disappear. And then Bitcoin will be the world's monetary index. If you simply want to keep your money and you don't want to express a credit sentiment or an equity sentiment or some property or real estate sentiment.
And what if a country decides, either China, I don't know how China is going to react to that scenario, or even the United States? Is it unstoppable, or getting to that point you just described? Does it depend on what happens with very powerful central governments?
I think Bitcoin is unstoppable as digital property. I think what you're going to see is 3 classes of countries. The communist countries that don't give you property rights won't, like North Korea or Cuba, won't let you own anything. They'll probably ban it. The countries that have weak currencies will have capital controls. They will let you own it, but they don't want you to exchange it or trade it. It's not illegal to own Bitcoin in China. They just don't want you moving billions of dollars out of their economy. You see a collapse of currencies like Argentina, the peso is 200 to 1. In Turkey, you see the lira is 11. It used to be 1.5 15 years ago. So the weak currencies will have capital controls. They'll let you own it as property. And of course, in the Western nations where they have strong currencies in the US dollar, of course, it's going to be deemed property. You'll pay capital gains tax on it when you sell it. And otherwise, it's pretty clear it crossed the chasm. It's universally acknowledged as common digital property. And it's the only crypto asset that has that standing. That's what makes it the institutional safe haven asset in this space.
Okay, so the first thing I want to touch on is to acknowledge that Michael Saylor obviously has a pretty extreme view of where the world is headed. He believes that every country will issue a digital stablecoin. Now this, I think, is a pretty fair assumption. Running a currency on a blockchain offers so many advantages that this just seems like a matter of time. However, what isn't so certain is that most currencies around the world will simply collapse into the US dollar stablecoin. The US dollar is certainly the world's reserve currency today, and having a digital version of it would make it so much easier for other countries to use it. So there is a logic to this perspective, but there is an immense power in a government controlling their own currency. So while some countries have proven they aren't able to do so without being reckless, I don't know if virtually every country worldwide will simply want to give up this power. For me though, the point is that there is a non-zero chance that Saylor is right. And if his vision of the world does come true, there would clearly be a need for a non-sovereign asset that people can easily store away from their government. In fact, even if Saylor is only partially correct, let's say that most currencies do not collapse into the US dollar, but some of them do, well, the need for a non-government issued store of value is clear. And this brings me onto a key point that I'm seeing across crypto today. There's always been a divide between Bitcoiners, proponents of Ethereum, and now other blockchains too. In my experience, when people start saying that one of these is dead, it's often the worst time to sell it. In the investing world, you want to be a contrarian. The best thing here is to simply focus on the facts. This chart, for example, shows us the number of active Bitcoin wallets. Now granted, an individual can create more than one wallet. However, this number still highly correlates with the real number of users on Bitcoin. And as we can see, while there have been bumps along the way, the number has continued to trend upwards over the past decade. And this for me is the key point. Bitcoin is on a long-term trend towards adoption. This is why the price continues to rise in the long term. In fact, over the past few months, we've had the perfect conditions for gold to outperform as inflation has risen. Whereas in reality, gold has barely moved until recently. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has excelled. Now, in Michael Saylor's opinion, this is because Bitcoin is slowly eating into gold's market share. Now, in my last video, I shared my personal portfolio, and Bitcoin was a key part of my holdings. Personally, I believe there is so much more to crypto than just Bitcoin. But also, Bitcoin is a unique asset which offers something no other crypto does. That's why I hold Bitcoin. I have no plans to sell it for the next few decades, but I also hold other projects too. But that is just my personal opinion, and I'm keen to hear yours. Do you hold Bitcoin as a part of your portfolio? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again very soon.